I will call this meeting to order. It's 7:06. Welcome everyone to our second Housing Committee meeting for this year CV9. Tonight we have a few things on the agenda. One is just some follow-up from last meeting. I wanted to let you all know sort of what happened and from our last conversation about ways that we can you all hear me? I think you should be able to hear me. Okay, great. Sorry, I just switched to my headphones. Talk a little bit about some ways that we might be able to engage stakeholders in some of our priorities. Talk a bit about new business and our priorities as a community, and then next steps and adjourn. So as I said to you in the first meeting, I'm still very committed to ensuring that we end on time. So at 8:30, I think we should be able to do that. And yeah, we can kind of get going. Hi, Renisha. Thanks for being on video. It's lonely out here.
Good night.
So yeah, so I wanted to let you all know, so some follow-on items from the last meeting were that we were going to reach out to Assemblymember Cunningham's office, and we were going to reach out to some of the presidents of the tenants associations of some of the major housing developments around here. I want you to know that we have done outreach to both of those parties, to all of those parties. We're still working to get a meeting with the Assemblymember's office. And that meeting will be to, again, get a sense of his priorities and start kind of developing more of a relationship with their office so that we, so that we can talk to him about our priorities and our concerns. We're still working on that meeting. It's just taking longer than we had hoped. So unfortunately, it didn't happen before this meeting. The second thing I wanted to follow up on is that we reached out to the presidents of the tenants associations for, I'm like blanking on the third one, but on Ebbets Field, Harry Silver, and I'm blanking on the other one, but that's okay because none of them responded to us and got back. We invited them to this meeting to kind of give us, to present and talk about their priorities and what their, how we might be able to work together. We're going to try and follow up again, but part of what I want to talk about in the next agenda item is how we might be able to outreach. And then those were kind of like the big takeaways from the last meeting, but was there anything else people wanted to bring up as follow-ons or things we wanted to continue to address or discuss? Okay. Great. So just those are the updates. I did just want to talk about stakeholder engagement. So, you know, as I kind of said in the first meeting, there's a lot of outreach that we as a committee can and should be doing. A lot of this work with the community board is just developing relationships with the groups and stakeholders that are already involved in a lot of the work that we care about and want to help better represent. And so, you know, I think the lack of response from some of the presidents of the tenants associations is just a result of, you know, trying to build those relationships. And so I wanted to talk to you all about how we might do that outreach together as a committee, and maybe even sort of like map out who we want to make sure we prioritize and talk to, so that we can be a better voice and platform for folks who are really, doing the hard work and, talking to residents and all of that. Um, so I wanted to kind of open that up for everyone and kind of talk about a potential strategy for that. Hi, Rod.
Hi, how are you?
Good,
All right,
thanks.
so we're looking to come up with, I just want to make sure I understand. We want to come up with a plan in order for outreach, in order to make sure that we contact all the stakeholders and information is flowing smoothly and whatnot. Am I correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so I mean, I will be honest, I information on this whole subject is like coming at a trickle. It really is. And I'm working with a group also trying to get information from Cunningham and set up meetings with them. And we're going through the same thing you're going through. It is tough. It is very, very, very tough. But what I think is needed is that within the housing committee, there should be a subcommittee that can take many of these items, right? Put them all together and be focused on that, and then present to this meeting, this committee, right, in order to streamline the process. All right. I'm familiar with my old position, my old job. Subcommittees really work. They take the load off of the general committee, and we report back, and we just focus and streamline things. So, and I think that a subcommittee to handle many of the issues that surround Vital Brooklyn and just general housing in general. I think that a subcommittee would really benefit the housing committee. And I don't know if anybody here agrees or would like to make a motion in order to move that forward, but I think it would really, really work. And I'll be a part of it. I mean, I'm not on the committee, but so I don't know if I could bring up the motion. I'm still getting my feet wet with all these processes and whatnot, but I have no problem being part of this committee, of the subcommittee. Not at all, in any form, shape, or fashion.
I appreciate that. I think it's a good idea. I think what I'm trying to even just establish, and I'm new here too, still coming up with understanding of processes and all of that, is trying to figure out what we want to do so that there's a directive for the subcommittee. So I'm not opposed to a subcommittee. I think what I'm trying to tease out right now in this conversation, and I think a subcommittee is a good end goal of this conversation, so that we can work in between meetings, essentially, is just sort of what what we want to what it is we want to do. What is it that we want to move forward? So I heard from you about Vital Brooklyn. I'm proposing something about on stakeholder engagement. And yeah, I mean, I would love to hear a little bit more about what you're thinking and what you would hope to accomplish.
All right, sure. So it's very similar to what we've been trying to accomplish, right? To gather information with regards to this project, Vital Brooklyn, and all the housing issues as a whole. I feel that we are looking at them in a very segmented way, and this is a huge project. The entire borough is being affected. Not just CB9, 17, 8, 9, 10. I mean, everyone. So I think we should take a holistic approach at everything to see, what are the issues with CB9, right? And also, we should also benchmark with the other community boards to see what problems they have, what outreach they did, and what they plan to do, because it's all going to be the same. right? And most of the developers have the same projects all over. And with the outreach, there are many people that have questions, and I feel that the subcommittee can streamline all of this information and present it to this committee that can bring it out to the public, the other stakeholders, and so forth. So I mean, I can come up with other items, like bullet items, on how to address that. One is to take a look at everything as a whole, right? How many projects are there all together? All right, how many beds all together, right? How many beds are in within each community board? All right. They say if the Department of Social Services, if they have jurisdiction over X amount of beds, right? Well, are those beds going to maintain within their jurisdiction? They're going to move someplace else, right? I'm just going with a series of things right now. Yeah, but I can, as the meeting goes on, I can just start jotting down stuff and streamline it even more.
So what I'm hearing is we need research, we need stakeholder engagement, and we need and we need not just research, but basically a broader sweep of understanding kind of like all of the issues at hand, almost like a state of housing in CB9.
Correct.
Yeah.
I said, I think looking at it as a whole would be beneficial.
Yeah. Cool. Diane.
Yes, good evening, everyone. While I do like the idea of Rod's suggestion, okay, for me, I would say that at some point a little later, we can go that way, simply because we're just starting out. And I think that we probably need to first gather up what we are looking to do. What is the purpose of this particular board? And one of the things that I would suggest is a list of elected officials in this community, because I believe that we will probably be touching bases with some of the elected officials, if not all of them, at some point in this committee, where we would need to probably obtain some information and or have them come and speak with us about whatever our needs and concerns are for the community. I live in the community and I don't know all of my elected officials, but I think that would be something that we would need to have, and then everyone would be able to have, that on hand. So that's one of my suggestions, but I do think maybe at a later point, when we get to that place where we know exactly where we want to go, then we can start kind of moving in the direction of subcommittees. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane.
You're welcome.
I would be willing to bet that the board office has a list of all of our elected officials for the district. So happy to get that from them and share it out. I would just say I agree with you 100%, Diane. It's why we reached out to Assemblymember Cunningham's office. I think it can actually be kind of like a parallel thing of wanting to talk to our elected officials, but also seeing our role as a committee and as a board as being the liaison between community and elected officials. At least that's how I see it, is as our purpose. And so that's why I'm also suggesting, I think there's additional stakeholders that we should talk to in addition to elected officials, including tenants associations, homeowners associations, block associations, so that we can actually also take people's temperature, and be able to convey that as we're building relationships with elected officials. So I think, given that we're new, I actually think we're all saying the same thing, Diane, Rod, myself, that we just need more information. And we need to know who's doing what and who's thinking what. And so, you know, I think part of what a potential subcommittee might do is kind of divide up that work and think about, you know, how all of us together can do some of that outreach, and do some of that information gathering. How does that sound? With the support of the board office.
I guess the way I look
Oh,
at
sorry.
this,
Rod and then
I'm
Jay.
sorry, I
Go
didn't
ahead.
mean.
No,
Okay,
that's okay, Rod. I sort of was looking at you because you looked like you were about to talk, so you can go, and then Jay, I see you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get my thoughts together on this. So first of all, I do agree, you know, we do have a lot of the information at with all the elected officials and whatnot, and we have written, you know, correspondences to many of them. And again, just like someone in Cunningham, you know, it's a very slow ship to turn. And yeah, I think the letters sometimes go into the big abyss. But there are a lot of people and constituents that are looking for information and basically what is going on and what is being done.
Mhm.
And I hear this all over, and this is the whole housing concern, you know, has been a big buzz within East Flatbush, you know, especially the southern part of CB9, you know, since July, and things are just ramping up. And, you know, and they are really clamoring for information, time frames, schedules, what exactly is going on, and so forth. And the tension can be measured by the last CB9 general meeting. You know, it was pretty hot. So, and that's why I was thinking of a subcommittee in order to streamline processes, in order to report back and to move things quickly. Right. And that's in addition to, you know, trying to get in touch with assemblymen, trying to get in touch with the other stakeholders, right? And just getting information in order to give out. And like I said, I'm willing to go full speed on it, 100%.
Awesome. I have some follow-up questions, but I'll go to Jay and we can have other folks chime in.
Sure. Hello. Should I refer to you as Miss Mazursky or Erin or Maz? What's
You
the
can call me.
official
You can call me Matt. You can call me Maz. Yeah.
Maz? Okay, Maz. I just wanted to add to what Rod said. Just to tell you, for the past 2 years, the majority, I hate to admit it, but the majority of my life has been spent learning about Vital Brooklyn and getting involved with it. And I'm sure that you could appreciate it. I looked up your resume, and I don't think people realize how accomplished you are. Maybe you could reference it afterwards. You were involved with what is Raise or Rise? Is that right?
Rise. Yeah. Yeah.
Rise, which is very a whole pro-democracy organization, etc. And then the current thing that you're involved with also, with the Welcome is significant because, it's in terms of capability of actually doing things on a community board, not just canceling 5 out of the 10 meetings, which is what happened last year. So I am concerned about any sort of delay game. And I'll tell you, I'll say delay game because last year there was an attempt against things that are democratic, against informing the community. We had 5 out of the 10 meetings that were canceled. I'll say it on the record. And we had a community board chair who did not choose to take those meetings, okay, even though it's in our bylaws that he can take them. There are no signs outside from New York State. New York State has no signs informing of the project. Okay, so people are in the dark. the majority of half of the people that you see here, Maz, a lot of them, they found out about it because I sent out a mailing. I sent out a mailing to around 1,600 people and everything like that about what's going on. And that's how I basically, it started where different people started talking about it. You know, you think Cheryl Bernard is the one who got one of my letters, and she's the one who actually got a lot of other people involved also. So a subcommittee is necessary now because we have a current situation on getting more information right now. So a subcommittee is necessary because there's an urgent need right now. And I'll tell you, in terms of the timing, when do you start the subcommittee? Take a look at the land use committee. The ULURP committee of CB9 is dealing with City of Yes. The land use committee said, or the ULURP committee said, we want to do a subcommittee right away now, just like when we had the environmental amendments. There was a previous subcommittee for the CB9 ULURP committee before. So we previously had a CB9 ULURP subcommittee for the environmental amendments to the City of Yes, because there was more information that was needed. With regard to Vital Brooklyn, there is an environmental impact statement that's coming out on one of the projects. There's 5 different projects. There's so much information, and land use at the ULURP committee, they're telling people this is not a land use subject. They are telling people from East Flatbush, you don't come here because it's not ULURP. It is a complete treating people like school children, because if it's a ULURP/land use issue, even though it's not ULURP, which is city law, it's still a land use issue. And what happens is they came to the land use committee and they presented, and there was no comments at the 30-day at the end of the 30-day comment period. There was nothing that was submitted by this community board to New York State. So it's a certain sort of New York State process in which they come, they ask for comments. This community board gave no comments for all of maybe 4 or 5 of the different projects. So there's housing concerns. This community board has really basically acted in a very political way. And when people see all the information and all the acts, I'll give you an example of how bad it gets. Okay, there was a meeting last night, and 2 meetings ago, many of the people here went to the ULURP committee, and they said, we want representation on the land use ULURP committee. There's no people who are on the committee from East Flatbush. Everybody is from Prospect Lefferts Gardens. Okay, no matter where you stand on the issue, at least have some representation so there could be voices. The land use committee yesterday, 7 different people. We brought up the issue of diversity, having at least 2 people from East Flatbush on it. Okay, the answer that and the previous meeting before that, the chair was open and said, you know, I hear what you're saying about having more people from East Flatbush on this CB9 land use ULURP committee because there's no one on it. I hear what you're saying. That was 2 meetings ago. The next meeting, instead of talking about the concepts of diversity on the land use committee, and after protests at the CB9 general meeting, they didn't do anything. Okay, so there is a political force out there. Okay, I know now I can't hear you.
I just want to. This is helpful. I just want to bring it back to the housing committee because I have nothing to do with the ULURP committee.
But it's relevant because I'm telling you, there are political forces out there that are going to delay it. We need to do something now at the for a subcommittee now. And even if we don't have enough people here for a quorum, I would ask you to make a motion at the general board. If you guys think that it's something you want to do, I would ask you, if there's not a quorum here at the next board meeting, to make a motion for a subcommittee and have them do it at the next general board meeting if this committee wants to do it. Thank you.
I feel like we're talking around a couple of issues, and I feel like it needs to just be. I'm hearing a couple different things that I feel like I'm not trying to be dense, but it sounds like there's some concern around Vital Brooklyn that we want to address. What I thought Rod was saying was that we want a subcommittee so that we can do work more efficiently. But to me, what Rod was saying was to do work more broadly about the state of housing in this district, not specifically about Vital Brooklyn. So
let's ask Rod. Okay, Rod.
Okay, hi, how are you? Right, so it's twofold. First of all, the subcommittee will look at everything as a whole, okay,
Mhm.
within the borough of Brooklyn, right, and then see how all of that affects us. We should also understand what other districts are doing, how many beds there are in those districts, and so forth, and take all this information, right, share it with the constituents, because this is information that they want to know. And also what are particular timelines, what changes can be made, if anything, because the biggest concern is that the residents feel that they are not being heard. And they feel that there's a lot of delays. They feel that they're being stepped on. These are actual words that people have told me. Right? And so that's why I am for the subcommittee, so that we can turn around and say, okay, this is what we have as a whole, and this is how we are being affected, and take those concerns and also bring on the stakeholders, speak with them, have them listen to the constituents, and get the information out there.
Um, yeah, okay. I mean, sorry, sorry. Yeah, I guess I'm not opposed to it. I'm just like trying to, I think that what we talked about is information gathering, trying to develop relationships so that we can get information.
Mhm.
And I just don't, and I think like that's what we're trying to move forward is that I'm not like clear on the role that a subcommittee would play in this. But if you want to motion it, I can't do anything about it. I just yeah. And I would
No,
love
I
to hear
don't,
from some other folks as well.
absolutely.
Renee and Regina, and then
Yeah,
Regina.
I, my name is Renee. I'm a resident in CB9. I'm the housing committee. Houses exist on land. The use of the land has to be related to housing. What is the purpose of the housing committee if you're not going to deal with some of the issues that houses exist on land? So you're tied to land use. So I'm asking you, Maz, what is the purpose of the housing committee and what is the objective?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's that's a good question. I am still figuring that out to some degree. I think that purpose is what is in a lot of ways is what I just said at the top of the meeting, which is that I believe the purpose of this committee is to be a liaison between people in the district and elected officials to make sure that priorities are understood and heard. I'm not saying that we don't have anything to do with ULURP. I'm just saying, and I think that we should work closely with ULURP. It's just that it is a slightly different issue in that, we're talking about the affordability, the availability, the sustainability of housing in this district, right? I think we can all agree on that. And so, I care just as much as you all. I'm facing, we're all facing a lot of the same issues. And so, but I do think that given that this committee is kind of doing a bit of a restart, and that our purpose is to, it's hard to be able to clearly state our goals of we're pushing this, we're pushing that without hearing from stakeholders and without knowing, what is a priority to folks. That's part of what you all are here to do, is to help push us and say, this is a priority for me. I'm part of this community. I'm an active member. And then for us to then go out to additional stakeholders and better understand what's at play so that we can be an effective liaison. That is my answer to that question in terms of the purpose of this committee.
Okay, I'd like to add at last night's meeting, there was a tool that was made available called the New York City Equitable Data Explorer. I would encourage everybody to go to that page and pull up the borough of Brooklyn on the internet, because it's related to the affordability, some of the things that you mentioned that this committee is about.
I'll definitely look into that. Let's move to Regina and then yeah, see what else comes up.
Hello, also a resident. This is my first housing meeting. I'm more in the economic development committee, still new as a residential committee member. So key thing for me, it somewhat ties this over. I live on Schenectady Avenue. I will greatly be impacted by all of the developments that is happening. I've lived here for 9 years. Early next year will be 10 years. So my concern is I've seen the shift. I'm sure people who've lived here longer have seen a greater shift, but I moved to this block from a safety concern, felt 100% comfortable. The past 3 years, since developments have occurred, just other developments outside of Vital Brooklyn. So it's come to my awareness that some of the projects for that Vital Brooklyn started before some of these developments that have already happened. I have a halfway house behind my house now, you know, shenanigans happens, other things happen in the perimeter, the Hotel Utica thing. So the point that I'm getting at is timing is of essence, because this thing has already started going. So I'm not sure if a subcommittee is absolutely the answer, but people who are focused on looking into key things, Rod had made some great points, but the key thing is establishing the baseline. So where are we at right now? So if it looked a certain way when the project started, it is definitely a different way now. And a key thing that I really want to highlight is, yes, we're all, CB9, yay, but different parts of CB9 has different, let's say, energy, for lack of better words. I'm a walker. I walk several miles on a day. I like walking long walks, and I'll go up every little block to go wherever. I'll walk all the way to the park. I'll walk to the museum. When my cousin was in the hospital, I was walking to those hospitals over there. So like, I take loops. I definitely understand what things look like, what streets I might not want to walk by, and to add more development on those blocks is very concerning for the residents that are there. So really the key thing is just understanding the baseline of the makeup of CB9, like how much homeless are already here today, 2023. And then, what are any of the developments? Quite frankly, for me, everything that's coming up, especially in significant numbers, how does that impact our well-being? But also it's just like, is it too much of one type of housing for one neighborhood to brunt, especially a small section of a larger CB9? It's a great deal. And, I was comfortable walking whichever time. Now I have to be like, do I want to walk to the train? What am I going to see there? Now I see things. So adding thousands of units to this particular area, obviously it comes with many other things, but for me, are these even the right neighborhood? So even just adding certain demographics, because everybody needs a place to live. Look, I lived in many apartments and had many roommates well before I got this house. So, I understand the concerns and how we need to move things around, but where else in Brooklyn could certain things go? Even from a financial standpoint, an average, medium income, are we actually going to drive down CB9? What sort of supporting resources do we even have to support such a thing? What are these people going to be doing? I know there's probably a car situation, but at the same rate, like public transportation, all the different little infrastructure things, but how does that actually benefit those who you're trying to serve with that housing if you don't even like it just doesn't make sense to add it here by all means, because there's so many other neighborhoods. And I'm not sure if it's being added to those other neighborhoods at the rate, let's use percentage, that's going on here. Yes, add more housing, but let's think about the current infrastructure, the current residents, the impact from that standpoint, to try to make it work for everyone, because the layout and the percentage breakdowns and how much is gonna actually just be concentrated, oversaturated in our little block, less than a mile, is my mind is blown. And for me, it feels like historically redlining. We really want to call out labels, just put them all over there, like, no, yes, just because you have the land doesn't mean like throw it there. Be strategic, actually look holistically how this is actually going to even impact the people you say you're going to help, not you, but the people. Let's just say that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Regina. Cheryl.
Hi, good night. How are you? Thank you so
Hi.
much for me to speak. Good night, everyone. Last night's meeting, they said that they were going to issue to, I guess, the committee members or the board members first, the website that's going to advise the new buildings, because last night they showed us what has already been built, right? And the locations and where it has already been completed or built. We would like to see the ones that are proposed to be built. And I'm hoping that we can get that. In addition to that, when you are housing, so do they have to speak to you or advise you what they plan on building as far as how many and where and so on and so forth? Who's going to hold them accountable? Let's be honest. Developers lie. They say they're going to build one thing, and then along the way, they're building something else. Who is going to hold them accountable? I mean, we're going to be here. Do we know what the frame that they're putting up, is that really for the 5 floors that they say, and they're really putting up 10? I mean, of course, the height difference will be, obvious. But who will hold these developers accountable? Because developers will send a proposal to say, this is what we want to build, right? But then they in turn will do something else. It's not a secret. All developers lie, and they want to do what they want to do. I also live in CB9. I'm in East Flatbush. They are proposing, I don't know if you know, but in Vital Brooklyn alone, they're putting up 7 buildings and then 2 sets of rows of houses that they're calling buildings. So they're saying 9 buildings. This is across the street from me, literally. And then 4 more buildings within a 5-block radius. I think 13 buildings within 6-7 blocks is ridiculous. I don't know what math they're looking at. It's ridiculous. 13 buildings within 5-6 blocks. I don't, and not to mention the 3 that we already have is low income. They put that up and didn't tell us either. We just saw them started to build. And that was in 2016, I think. So now in 2023, they want to start in 2024, building these buildings. And we're talking about 13. So we're faced with a lot. We're faced with developers that lie, developers that are not telling us when we ask them concrete. They talk in these riddles and these terms and these acronyms like we know. I mean, they like to explain what a FAR is and a this and a that, but we want it in layman's term. How many floors are you trying to go up? We don't want to hear the units. Whatever you say, it's too much. And whatever you propose, we don't want it. That's the bottom line. We just don't want it. That's what we're going to stick with. That's what we're going to hold on to. And that's what we're going to fight for. But as far as them proposing, let's try to see, they're not even talking to us. We need to hold, and who is going to hold the developers accountable for when they start? Let me tell you, I was on a City of Yes. I was on a City of Yes that MTOP held when it was a radio station, and they have spoke about situations and developers that were still given a certificate of occupancy by Department of Buildings, even though there was a judge TRO in place. They still went forward with it. Developers have people in their pockets. I don't care what anyone says. Someone's getting paid because you can go above and beyond. You can say you're going to do this and you're not. This is New York City. Let's be real what's happening. That's why we're standing firm with the fact that we don't want it. We don't want it. That's our first and foremost suggestion. That's our first and foremost feeling. We don't want it because developers lie. No one holds them accountable. Sorry about that. So, you know, that's what we want. We want to be heard because it's just simply not fair what they're trying to do in this one neighborhood alone. So we thank you just for hearing us. Anything that will work, we need it. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. I want to just respond to what Regina said, because I really appreciated all of your questions. I feel like it's echoing a lot of what Rod said as well, which is that we just need a baseline. We need to, you know, clearly the information is out there, but in really siloed, you know, sort of hard to get information. And I don't think it would be that hard to at least start putting this information together. You know, and trying to kind of unpack really the needs so that we can have a clear state of the district. So I just want to say I appreciate all of these comments. Thank you, Cheryl, for those concerns. I also just want to be clear that I'm here really as like a facilitator. I'm the chair, but again, I'm still getting up to speed. I don't represent like anything but the fact that I am also a resident trying to, you know, figure out how to do what's best by residents. And so yeah, I just want to be clear about that. So this is where you air those concerns, and then we kind of come up with a plan. I continue to think and hear that this is about information gathering, and you know, and trying to, in doing that, making sure that we're allowing our voices to be heard to elected officials and get that information. And I am committed to that. We are reaching out to the Assembly member's office. He's not the only one. I think, you know, we need to reach out to our city council members as well, and probably a few others, which we can do in the next month. And also, you know, I can talk to the board office about information gathering and what they can do and what we might need to do as a committee to kind of get more of that together. So I think those are really great questions. Thank you, Regina, for laying all of that out. I have a lot of the same questions. I feel like we can't address the problems at hand without knowing where we're starting from. Jay.
Sure. So I think maybe there was some ambiguity at something that was said. I just wanted to be clear on it. Do you think Vital Brooklyn is a housing issue, Maz?
I don't really feel that I don't feel that I should comment on that right now. I don't think it's my place to comment. On
whether Vital Brooklyn and the 1,000 or 2,000 units is a housing issue, which is appropriate for the housing committee? Would you say that it's not a housing issue?
I feel like you're questioning me right now in a way that doesn't really, can you just say what you want to say? I don't know why, like, can you just make a statement?
Sure, because before I thought there was some ambiguity as to whether or not this was just a land use issue. I'm not going at you personally. I'm going after the issue that was said a few moments ago, which was whether this Vital Brooklyn was more of a land use ULURP issue and whether it shouldn't be necessarily also in the housing committee with regard to jurisdiction. So I just wanted to clear the air on the issue that says that, yes, Vital Brooklyn with 1,000 or 2,000 units affects a lot of the housing in the neighborhood. And yes, it's a housing issue. And we're not going to have any sort of questioning or debate whether or not this is appropriate for the housing committee. So that's why I asked you a question.
Yeah,
that's
I
simply-
believe that we are
if you-
talking
if you don't
about,
have a comment,
I
you
think
don't
we're
have comment.
talking, yeah, this doesn't need to be contentious. You can say what you need to say, which is that you think Vital Brooklyn is a housing issue. We are like, and so great,
But you were the chair, so I want to ask you, I want to just be clear. Do you think it's a housing issue? You just said no comment. Would you agree that it is a housing issue? I think
I
we
just
would both.
I don't like feeling like I'm being set up for something. So I'm just trying to
Okay.
get at what you're saying.
No problem. I'll tell you what my concern is, honestly. It's just, I want to make sure that there isn't some sort of debate that goes on where somebody says, listen, we're not going to have a Vital Brooklyn subcommittee because we think it's not a housing issue. We think it's more of a ULURP or land use issue. So that's the reason I ask it.
Well, let me make two things clear. Let me just make
Sure.
two things clear. Vital Brooklyn is a housing issue. It is also a ULURP issue. It's being,
Thank
we are at the beginning of starting to figure out how to address Vital Brooklyn. A subcommittee for the sole fact of Vital Brooklyn was not proposed. It was a subcommittee for the sake of moving business forward was what was proposed. So I just want to make sure we're not talking about a subcommittee for Vital Brooklyn, or at least that hasn't been what was said. So I just, so if, and on the agenda, it's new business and community priorities. That includes Vital Brooklyn. This is only the second committee. This is only the second meeting of this committee this year. My second committee as chair. Part of my job as chair is to understand what the priorities are and issues are that people on this board and residents want to bring up. Vital Brooklyn is obviously something that people are bringing up. So it's something that needs to be addressed. We don't have quorum in this meeting, so we can't officially create a subcommittee this time. Hopefully more people will join next time and we can take a vote. What we can do in the meantime, between this meeting and the next meeting, is do outreach to elected officials to make sure that we have a sense that they are following this and get a better sense of what we can do as residents to better input into that process. And that's something that I'm committed to. It's something that I've already been in touch with the board office about. And, all I can do is what I can do, and that is what I'm doing. So, I'm here to work with you, and I think Vital Brooklyn is being addressed as a housing issue. My understanding is that it's also being addressed in the ULURP committee. And so that's what I would say. And I don't feel comfortable commenting because I have not spent the better part of the last few years working on Vital Brooklyn. And I'm still trying to come up to speed and understand the project and understand the concerns around the project. That's all.
Okay. So my question.
I think Janice is next.
Wait, but can I just say
Sure.
something? Because
Sure.
I didn't say what I wanted to say. So I just wanted to say, I am asking you that there be a separate, and presenting it, that there be a separate Vital Brooklyn committee. Full disclosure, okay? I do not live in CB9. I used to own a property there. I have a significant interest because I'm a member of the Kingsbrook Jewish Shul, okay, which is in CB9. So I disclose what my interest is. And I think you should also disclose your job. I think you're a big advocate for migrant rights and welcome back. I think that needs to be disclosed because the issue of, who's part of the nonprofit, what their different interests are, welcome back is a big thing for immigrants' rights. And for the whole thing of the migrant crisis. So we need, I think that should be disclosed because anybody who's involved with the migrant crisis and advocating for that may be interested in tremendously increasing the size of the buildings because there's 120,000 migrants who came. That's a homeless issue. And that would actually, that goes to the argument that we should definitely have more homeless, taller buildings. So you have an interest in an organization. And I think that that should be said, because I was kind of concerned, how does a person like you get to be the chair of this committee when you never went to a land use committee? I've never seen you at housing, and suddenly you're the boss from a different side of town. You're by the northeast part of the district. So I'm wondering, why does somebody get put here when they basically, it's the same thing we had last year. We had somebody from the northeast part of the district that didn't allow East Flatbush.
Jay, I'm going to give
residents-
you one more minute because there's somebody else in line and you've been
Sure,
talking
but I
quite
just,
a lot.
if you can, fine, if you can disclose your interests in whatever nonprofit, and anybody here who says that we shouldn't take aggressive and immediate action on Vital Brooklyn, please say the cross streets. Because we've had this before at the Housing Committee, where there's people here on this committee or who show up and say, let's wait, let's delay, let's not do too much. They're from Prospect Lefferts Gardens on the other side. So if the issue is decided, people should say what cross street you live on, and everybody should disclose where they are. And I have to ask you, what made you join this committee? And how did you get to be put as the chair when you have no experience in land use and housing? It's a legitimate question.
Janice, I'm going to let you go.
Wow. Good evening, everyone. I'm glad that we can take a pause and just breathe a moment. I am, of course, a community resident. That's why I'm in this committee. And it really doesn't matter where you live. The fact of the matter is, as long as you live in Community Board 9. So we're not going to do the east side, west side, north side, south side. Anyone in the area of Community Board 9 who is interested in getting proper housing, adjusting this AMI, should be here, okay? So I really don't want this to be a whole thing about Vital Brooklyn, because I may or may not live in that area, but the fact of the matter is, it's not really just about me, it's about the entire area of CB9. So the question, is Vital Brooklyn a housing committee issue? Well, you know what, to be quite honest, it's a housing committee issue, it's a ULURP issue, and it's an issue just as Bedford Avenue, Rogers Avenue, all the other places, Franklin Avenue, all the other places in CB9. This is not everything, you know, all in for Vital Brooklyn. This is about the entire Community Board 9 area. I am opposed, I'm going to tell you why I'm opposed to a separate subcommittee, because I think it should be all hands on deck, which means that if we're going to work as a housing committee, we don't need a subcommittee at this point. We're just getting back and trying to feel our way from last year and prior years. I think what we need to do as the committee is we need to work cohesively, and we need to formulate questions and our concerns, and have our council people, our local reps like senators and Senator Myrie, Cunningham. We need to have Crystal Hudson, Rita Joseph, have them at a committee meeting, and then we can have them answer the questions that deal with our concerns, because otherwise we're just like picking with each other. Well, not all of us, but you know, what's your view on that? It doesn't matter what my view is. The fact of the matter is, all housing and Community Board 9 is the concern of the ULURP and housing. They work together. I'm sorry I missed last night's meeting. I'll have to go look at the recording. But I am, again, lastly, I just want to state that I do not believe there should be any subcommittee. We need to work together the way we're in this meeting. We need to form questions, and we need to get the reps who are accountable for this, period. I kind of thought that maybe one of them would have been invited, because the last time when we had our meeting, I had suggested that we have one of the reps come. So I don't know the procedure for that. Is that something that the district manager has to do? I don't know. Does it have to be voted on?
It's been done, Janice. Sorry, I don't know if you heard at the beginning. I don't remember when you came in, but
I'm
we
sorry.
have reached out to them, and my hope is that we have not been able to get a meeting with them yet. But my hope is that by the next meeting we'll be able to do that. The outreach has been done, and that suggestion was acted on.
Because they certainly are reaching out to me to fund their, to do their fundraisers, attend their fundraisers and give money. So, you know, I'm gonna have to step to them at this point and let them know, you want something from me, I need something from you. You need to
Yep.
attend the committee,
That
so,
would be awesome. That would be awesome if you could do that.
thank you.
And thank you for your comment. I couldn't agree more. Regina, I'll let you go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to highlight the point of why representation actually matters. And again, like I said, I walk a lot, right? You're a person and you're only hanging out north of Nostrand. Life is a lot different, even in the same district. So thankfully, we have people who live here and are on this call just by chance. Luck. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, like just getting the information out. So that's where if there was already representation, north, south, east, west, like just that, you already naturally have the sauce to understand what's going on in the different areas. Because yes, life happens, people don't always show up. I think, I'm new to this myself, but seeing the changes over the past 3 years has been the thing that's concerning. And this is more of a quieter block, and the things that I've seen, if something happens, who's gonna see it, So when I say safety and certain things, and other blocks have some of the similar things, we don't have as much traffic sometimes. There's all sorts of different nuances that unless you're taking your time to intentionally go to each parts of the areas in the morning, at night, in the middle of the day, see how workers are, like all of that stuff, unless you're actually intentionally doing that, you don't know. Because if I was living in, the more prime spot where I hang out a lot sometimes, then, all the housing that, you're gonna have a different feeling. If I was hearing a presentation on certain things, and my whole thing is, sure, there's Vital Brooklyn, but there's everything, to be honest, is my concern from the makeup of the neighborhood. You're just not gonna know. So representation absolutely matters. You wouldn't want to have a representative who grew up in Kansas and who's trying to run, New York. Like, it just doesn't make sense. So let's not lose sight of that. And again, thankfully, some of my neighbors, not quite, direct neighbors, are here to state the concerns that we have, but it has changed over the past few years. And we directly are seeing this, and adding in the volume that we're looking at is great concern. But again, baseline, and for me, it's everything. The only reason why Vital Brooklyn is a hot topic is timing. If we drag our feet, then, so subcommittee or not, it's something that's a fire. And, that's really my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Renee, I believe you're next.
Hey, Maz. If a subcommittee is not created, or if there isn't, let's say it doesn't come about, some of these issues are still going to exist. For example, I don't live where other people live. I live around the corner from Regina. I live around the corner from Cheryl. I guess, this is my first housing or maybe second housing meeting. And I've been attending other meetings. Housing, would it be related to there's a RV vehicle on Winthrop between East 49th and Schenectady, and the guy's been living out of that? That's his housing. The homeless shelter, the hotel turned homeless shelter. I live down the street from what's behind Cheryl, what started out as an apartment building and turned into affordable housing and the characters that we now see passing through our neighborhood, that affects me in multiple ways, me and my kids. That again, to me, is housing. I could continue. For example, I have a neighbor who lives on the corner and his vehicles were broken into. 2 of his vehicles were broken into last night. I helped him cut some trees down so he can now get a clear view of whoever is going into his vehicle. Issues like this I can continue to express. Maybe there's some format in which you can allow me to express some of these quality of life issues. I guess I'll ask this question at this point. Is quality of life issues related to housing?
I mean, I would say so. You know, I think that it's all related. I think it's a question of, you know, I would love to hear answers from other members on this call. But yeah, I mean, I think that quality of life is very related. And it, you know, it's like what makes a housing unit, or like what makes somebody live in a place is also about the environment around us, right? And so, you know, I think it's related. You know, I think that we have to find ways to obviously like tie it back to the core part of housing, but obviously the conversation about housing is tied to many other things.
I'm with you. I'm not against you. You're here to do a job, and I like to work with the people that are in my community to help them do that job. You're the leader of this committee. So some of my questions, I hope you don't take them as abrasives or as an attack. But from what I understand, you're seeking information, and I have a lot of information that I would provide. I probably don't walk as much as Cheryl. I probably do a little bit more driving. I probably do a little bit more riding my bike, but I do traverse the community. I do get around the community. So I get to see other parts of CB9. I get to see other community boards. I live on the borderline of another community board. So though there's a border there, what affects me affects them as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate that, Renee. And I think I want to have a think about sort of how and what the right like vehicle is for us to express those concerns. Because I think your concerns sound similar to Regina's concerns, sound similar to Cheryl's concerns, and sound similar to Rod's concerns. You know, we're all residents here, and I think like, yeah, I think that part of that is about information, and I think part of that is also about making a unified statement per Janice's suggestion about, you know, where we stand, so that our elected officials can take that and understand kind of, you know, from a different purview than maybe what they usually have, you know, what our main concerns are and how they need to prioritize that. So yeah, I think I appreciate that comment. It's bringing, I'm thinking on it basically. Cheryl and then Rod. Yeah, Cheryl and then Rod.
Okay, thanks so much. As Janice was speaking, I was writing down a few things so I could remember because I'm so tired. But I will say this: empathy and sympathy is 2 different things. Okay? If you have a pet, that pet died, you'd understand if someone else told you their pet died. But if you never had a pet, someone told you that their pet died, you'd be like, okay, it has happened to me. Empathy and sympathy are 2 different things, okay? It matters where you live. Yeah, we are all in CB9, yes, but we are all not going to be affected by what's coming. In every meeting that I go to, or I listen, or I see, I hear this, oh, well, we've had meetings on Vital Brooklyn. Where were you all? Now we're here. And as we're here, all we're hearing is, all we talk about is Vital Brooklyn. You know, it's like, it's a little frustrating. Those who will not affect, you don't understand. I'm sorry, but we are here. We're going to talk about it every time. I hope you all do not think that we only come here and talk about Vital Brooklyn. I am very proactive. My constituents, my neighbors, my friends, we are all very proactive. Do not think we're only coming to CB9 and just talking. No, we're working. We're searching. We're understanding. We're learning. And we really want to thank Jay for that. He's really opened our eyes, because the people that live in this neighborhood that, like Janice said, we all are in CB9. No, you all did not care about East Flatbush because it would not affect you. Bottom line, I don't care where you live. It doesn't matter to me, because trust me, if you live around here and you see 13 buildings coming up and no parking, you experience already what happens here in the summertime when we deal with concerts and Boys and Girl Highfield. We don't mind those. Guess what? It's only for one day, but we see what it does. And that experience would be every day for us. We have 3 hospitals that we live in. That's why I want to see the plans of the new apartments and the new places and where the new ones are going to be built starting from this year. Where are they? I want to know if wherever they built these 4-story minimum amount of apartment buildings, if it has 3 hospitals around it, if it has a various of schools around it, if it has schools around it, if it has synagogues around it. I want to know where these new places that they've built up, has it been, or where has it been by us? Has it been their shelters and halfway houses and look, the list goes on. So yeah, we all live in CB9, but we all don't understand the same situation or what we are faced with. So thank you very much for telling us that you all live. I'm tired of hearing, oh, we already talked about Vital Brooklyn, and I'm tired of hearing every time we want to talk about something in Vital Brooklyn, we're being shut down. So it's like you all complaining we weren't here. Now you're complaining that we are here. But as far as our elected official, Brian Cunningham, I have been the first to be emailing him and asking for a town hall. I have all my emails. I have everything dated. I can prove everything that I say. We went as far as giving us a little town hall meeting in the library that was so small it would hold 12 people, to canceling the day before. And the town hall meetings that he had recently, I don't know when he planned those, but they never told us about it. But when we found out, thanks to Jay, 4 hours before it was actually going to happen, when we did go to his meetings, we have to hear about everything that he does. And then we have to hear about, oh, I don't want to talk about Vital Brooklyn right now because I'll give you a Vital Brooklyn meeting. So every meeting we go to, he don't want to talk about it. But everybody that comes to Vital Brooklyn had something to do with something that can tell us some information. And in every meeting, I don't want to hear about it. I'm going to give you yours. When is he going to give us ours? We've been asking. I gave him a list. I gave him everything. Last night, John Wolfling, he talked about how we should widen Winthrop. I'm like, dude, you got that from me. So where you coming? I live on Winthrop. I see it. I can tell you my cross streets. I can tell you what I'm involved with. So listen, I just want to know, and I understand that CB9, like even UMass, I appreciate how you're listening, but what are you going to do? That's what I want to know. Yes, we're telling you how we feel. And I know that CB9 feels like it's a state project, because that's all I've been hearing. I go to CB9 and it's a state project. I go to Brian Cunningham. It's been on my desk. I go to this one. Oh, I'm not too sure. Oh, this one's going to be, it's so much bullcrap that it's annoying. We're not being heard. We want to be heard. And we're going to try to stop this by any means necessary. We're going to try to contact whoever we have to contact to do whatever we need to do because we want to be heard. No one really experiences and understands what we are dealing with. Trust me, unless you live over here. You can live in Brooklyn, but if you don't live over here, you have no idea. Empathy and sympathy is two different things. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. We're going to go to Rod. Rod, if you can keep your comments to 3 minutes, and then we're going to talk next steps and work to close.
No problem. I'll keep it short. Okay, so I've been a resident here for 57 years. And I have seen the change in just basic enforcement. All right, the enforcement has taken a shift. All right, so in East Flatbush, right, the enforcement for sanitation, the police and whatnot, it has shifted further up towards Crown Heights, right, and Prospect Leftis Gardens. And how do I know this? Because everybody will tell you these abandoned cars and campers and everything, they drive me insane. All right, so what happens? I turn in 301 tickets and I do it all over. And you can see the response from East Flatbush as opposed to the other areas in Crown Heights and Prospect Leftis Gardens, right? If we had that same enforcement here, things might be a little more palatable, but we don't know who's coming into the shelters, right? And I say shelters because it's the homeless shelter and the MICA shelter that's coming in. These individuals have records, and I did some research online, and you know, the sex offenders and some violent criminals and felons and whatnot. And are these individuals that's going to go into these buildings? And if so, what screening is there? All right, do we have to understand that we're not going to receive the information with regards to who's going to be in these buildings with less enforcement in the neighborhood? It's a huge concern. And as Regina said, right, she walks blocks and she navigates around certain blocks. And my wife, she does the same thing. So that is the concern that we have. And this is a concern that it really isn't in other areas because of the density of the projects in our neighborhood that we're going to be faced with lack of enforcement, and we have no idea who is coming in. And that's why a subcommittee in Vital Brooklyn will let us take a look at all of these issues: housing, enforcement, ULURP. Well, it's not a ULURP issue, but I believe it is. The ULURP, all right, potential vehicles, potential parking. There's 47 scooters currently at the men's shelter right now, 47, and they're 47 because I counted them. Now, when they build this project, these 47 scooters that are chained to the fence, where they're going to go? Are they going to be strewn all over the property? All right, these are the things that are not being considered and taken and being looked at. All right, so we know there's going to be a challenge once these projects are built, and that's why the residents of East Flatbush, even though yes, the community board looks at everything as a whole, but the community board is not getting the density of the proposed projects, such as in East Flatbush. Thank you.
Thanks. I know I said Rod was the last one. Regina, I'll give you 2 minutes and then we're going to wrap up.
I'll be super short. Just adding on to what Rod said to add some additional clarity. So the enforcing and the dumping. And so consider the makeup and the layout of some of the houses that are around here, just the homes in general. So there's lots of alleyways, there's just different things, which some areas might not have impacted. We've had cars dumped in our alleyway, and then we have to figure out how to trash and all like every sort of crazy thing, cleaning up the stuff that happens sometimes. And I can't imagine basically on whatever developments, honestly, yes, is Vital Brooklyn, but in general, like the saturation is already hot over here. So just considering the makeup and the infrastructure that it's already here and how it can increase like the well-being, or sorry, decrease the well-being from a safety standpoint, from a trash and you know what, when I had a point where I was trying to get them to remove certain things, but they're like, since you can't see it from the street, you know, you pay for it yourself. So just throwing that into the pool of additional things to consider as things are being looked into, but lots of us have lots of alleyways and other things and deal with lots of headaches because of it and then on. But thank you for that time.
Definitely. So we've gone through most of the agenda. I want to talk about next steps based on everything I'm hearing at this meeting. And so I appreciate all of you bringing your new business and community priorities into the meeting. It's been very helpful. So next steps are, I'm going to continue to work with the board office to get Assemblymember Cunningham and other elected officials to come to this meeting and comment and be able to answer more of these questions. I also am going to talk to the community board office about what information we can gather so that we can get all of the information available and then talk about the gaps in that information and how we as a committee might be able to to get the rest of the information that we need to really understand a baseline of housing in this district. I hear that Vital Brooklyn is of great concern for a lot of reasons. And so I would say that fits into the big holistic picture of the state of housing. But I also hear the urgency. And so that is all that I believe I can do at this moment. I think that in the next meeting, we'll have a lot more information and hopefully more representatives who can speak to these issues. So that's my commitment coming out of this meeting. Is there anything else that that we need to do between now and the next meeting? But I believe that's what I heard from everybody today. Jay, you have 1 minute. And Regina,
Sure.
you will have 1 minute after that.
Yeah, I would just ask if when deciding the question as to whether or not we need a Vital Brooklyn subcommittee, if we could do it on a costs benefits analysis, take a look at the costs, take a look at the benefits, what's the downside, what's the upside? What's the problem? What's the loss of creating a subcommittee where people are going to volunteer for free, work hard, get more information and doing everything on it. So that's my just comment, costs and benefits. Number two, I think if anybody is going to come here and give an opinion, I would just ask, please have your last name on the screen, because it's important for people to see who different people are, what their name is. So I would just recommend, and I would just make an ask. This is just my opinion. Please have your first name and your last name on it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Regina.
I guess just some clarity for next meeting. It's that, I guess, what exactly is the goal to have follow-up on? I guess what should we expect to hear in concerning what you just stated? I wasn't exactly clear on the exact deliverables. Thanks.
Yeah, good question. I want to work with the board office to get elected officials here to comment on, to bring us more information, to understand what they're currently working on in terms of housing priorities, but also for us to be able to voice some of our concerns and do that in parallel with collecting information about, per your suggestions, about the state of housing in the district overall. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Great. So I think those are the next steps. I appreciate you all bearing with me as we work through, I think a lot of this is just us figuring out and getting the information we need to be able to move certain things forward and make some decisions. Yes, Renee, anything else related to things that we need to do for next steps?
Sorry, this is Renee's
This
wife,
is my
Celia.
wife, Celia.
I just wanted to ask about like format, I guess, of the meetings in general, for this particular committee, I guess. Is there something against having a chat as well? Or is it that all the committees have the chat closed, or? I'm just asking.
I believe it's a CB9 policy that there's no chat in these meetings. As a facilitator, I do appreciate that policy because it's very hard to facilitate a conversation with voice and with chat.
Okay, no, I get that. And as a person who used to run a lot of meetings that are under open meetings law. My question then is there a way other than this, or other than sending an email directly to CB9 for us to maybe have comments or questions, you know, because you can think of a question sometimes after a meeting is finished or whatever. If we have comments or questions for this particular, for any committee on CB9, maybe that's a better question. For any committee on CB9, is it that we have to directly send an email to CB9's address in order to ask whatever it is, or in order to comment on whatever it is?
Yes, I believe that's the way that it works,
Okay.
is to send an email.
The other question is that the same policy, because I know in person, if you go to any community board, whether it be 9 or any other, if you go in person, there is a public comment period. So I wanted to know if that is something that the committees would be willing to add, only because there is no, you know, we can ask questions based on whatever the topic is. So if we wanted to bring up an item or something of that nature, could that be something that would facilitate that? It might also help people to get through the agenda faster because they would go over the agenda things and then have a public comment session, or is that something amenable?
Yeah, I appreciate the feedback. I think it's amenable. I think given that this committee, the number of people that showed up is pretty small, you know, we did have an agenda item that we did get through called new business and community priorities, in which people were bringing, I thought what people were doing was bringing up their issues of concern. But if you want to talk about that becoming more specific, then I'm happy to talk through that. So I appreciate the feedback.
Okay, thank you.
Great. It's 8:29. I've committed to ending. We're through the agenda, and I've committed to ending this meeting on time. I gave my email address out the last meeting. Feel free to email me if you've got more. You can always also email the board office, and you know, and I look forward to all of your participation in the next meeting, in which we have more information and hopefully a couple of guests who can comment on some of these concerns and topics. So thank you all and have a great evening.
Thank you.
I'll
You do
adjourn
too.
this meeting at 8:30 p.m.